Thank you for joining me today. It's Brian Gubernick, and welcome to the No Days Off podcast, where we believe that every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. There's a recent quote I read that I am in love with right now. It's very simple, but it's one worth sharing with the No Days Off Nation. That quote is: "The measure of an intelligent person is the ability to change his mind. The measure of an intelligent person is the ability to change his mind." That quote is often floating around the internet in all different sorts of forms, and there's a shorter version that is usually attributed to Albert Einstein. But the version I like more closely is tied to Clarence Kelly Johnson, who we talked about, I don't know, it's probably a handful of weeks ago, the legendary engineer and the leader behind Lockheed's Skunk Works. And I think I was talking about him an Elon episode where Kelly Johnson and the SR-71 plane was discussed. Kelly Johnson's version makes me like the quote even more because this was not coming from a philosopher sitting around thinking about the theory. This was coming from an actual doer, a builder, a designer, a leader responsible for solving real problems under real pressure. And that's why the quote matters. Most people think intelligence means being smart or being right. And I don't think that is the full picture. Being right is great. Don't get me wrong on that one. Being right is great, but being right about yesterday's facts does not help you if the world changed this morning. I think that real intelligence is not just what you know. It is your ability to update what you know when there's just better information available to you. Now, that is harder than it sounds because changing your mind can actually feel like losing. There's an ego component of that involved. It can feel like admitting you were wrong or giving someone else the win. And if your identity is attached to being right, then every new piece of information becomes a threat to you. But intelligent people do not treat new information as a threat. They treat new information as an upgrade. And I like that. I like to think about it that way because there is a really big difference between being principled and just simply being stubborn. Principles are the things that you stand on. Stubbornness is refusing to move even when the ground underneath you has shifted. Principles should make you stronger. Stubbornness, typically in this particular scenario, just makes you outdated. I think this shows up everywhere. In business, the market changes and customers change and technology change. The way people communicate change. In leadership, the needs of your people change. In parenting, the kid that you were raising 2 years ago is a much different kid that's standing in front of you today. In your health, what worked for your body when you were 30 years old may not be working at 45. In your relationships, the version of you that got you here may not be the version required to go forward. So how do you confidently change your mind? First, I think you have to separate your identity from your opinion. You are not weak because you changed your mind. You're weak if you see evidence that you are wrong and you still protect the old position because your ego cannot handle the update. Second, you need to know what changed. Do not just say, "I changed my mind." Instead, say, "Here's what I used to believe. Here's the new information I learned. Here is why I see it differently now." That is not flip-flopping. That is actually just thinking. Third, change your mind before the consequences force you to. See, most people eventually change after the decision, or in this case, the business breaks, or the relationship suffers, or in health, the body shuts down. Intelligent people try to change when the signal first appears, not when the pain becomes impossible to ignore. And fourth, do not make changing your mind a dramatic event. Make it normal. Make it part of your operating system. The best leaders that I personally know, that I've been able to observe or at least study, maybe I don't personally know them, but I study, the best leaders are not reckless with their opinions, but they are not prisoners to them either. They can make a strong decision with the information they have. And then when better information appears, they can adjust without completely falling apart. That is intelligence. Not because changing your mind means every new idea is right, not because you should become someone with no backbone, but because the world is just far too complicated for any of us to be right all the time. So what does that mean? That means that intelligence really requires humility and it requires curiosity. It really means that you need to have the ability to look at your own thinking and ask, is this still true? And I think that question really matters. Is this still true? Not was I once right or not can I defend this? Certainly not will people judge me if I change. Just is this still true? So this week, okay, I want you to pick one belief or one strategy or one habit or one opinion that you've been defending for just too long and look at it honestly. Ask yourself, what evidence have you been ignoring? Ask yourself what a smart person who was not emotionally attached would do next. The goal is not to look right. The goal is to get it right. Let me say that again. The goal is not to look right. The goal is to get it right. And sometimes the smartest thing you can say is, I see it differently now. That's all I have for you today, the No Days Off podcast. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every single day brings a new opportunity to get better. So let's get after it.